Tensei Shitara Slime Dataken. Hiiro is an ogre mercenary, strong, ferocious and fearless, with a burning passion to see that his village is safe from intruders. But Hiiro is not his name right from time. His name got changed after a certain life-threatening event happened. Hiiro had been involved in a battle while attempting to join his village in a fight that eventually brings the entire village to ruins. Hiiro kills the warriors of his master, Demon Lord Clayman, who have come against him to stop him from helping his village. Left with the Demon Lord himself, Hiiro must make a choice to either confront his master or to chicken out of the battle. But Hiiro is a fearless warrior, and all his life he had chosen the hardest paths. He faces Clayman, not minding that he might end up losing his life. Demon Lord Clayman feels insulted that a mere mercenary like Hiiro would defy him and even kill his soldiers. As if that's not enough, the same Hiiro now confronts him in a duel. Hiiro is undaunted despite Clayman's derogatory and intimidating remarks. He affirms his loyalty to the people of his village instead, telling Clayman he would give anything to protect his village and his comrades. In disgust, Clayman points his dead allies to him. Hiiro's rage increases, propelling him even more towards Clayman in a battle. Clayman laughs at him, sure his attack is at his own peril. He waits for Hiiro to receive his doom. With every strength left, Hiiro charges at Clayman, but Clayman stands rooted like a rock. Obviously, Hiiro is no match for him. When he decides to attack back like a flash of lightning, he brings Hiiro down, thrusting him through with his sword. Hiiro falls to the ground as a slain warrior. He knew his end had come, but he has 4 words in his mouth. "Someone tell the village." After 10 days, Hiiro opens his eyes in an unfamiliar and beautiful room, wound up with bandages, with 4 people standing by his bedside, a lady nurse, 1 other lady, and 2 men. He soon realizes that he had been sleeping for 10 days, and the other woman standing by his bedside apart from the nurse is Queen Towa of Raja Kingdom, and that he was picked up from the stream flowing by the mountains with his 10 other comrades, and they were brought to the kingdom to be treated. Soon enough they discover Hiiro's wounds were too severe to be healed, and nothing could be done to save him. However, at one of his dying comrades' pleas, the queen revives Hiiro through a renaming ritual where she gives him a new name. That new name is Hiiro. That was how he got his name changed. However much the queen had done, she regrets not having enough life force to revive Hiiro's other comrades, as the 10 of them died. Hiiro expresses his gratitude to the queen for saving his life. One of the elders standing by asks Hiiro if he would return to Ogre Village, as they had heard him repeating the name Ogre throughout the 10 days of his unconsciousness. The mention of the name of his village seemed to stir up his passion afresh. He remembers he was on his way to his village to save his people when his master tried to stop him. He immediately jumps from bed, ignoring the pains in his body and the bandages on him, and rushes out the room, hoping to be able to still salvage the situation in his village. He resists the guards outside, who try to stop him, and climbs on one of the kingdom's dragons, dislodging the rider, and rides back to his village. To his shock and dismay, his entire village now lay in ruins. He came too late. He regrets not being there to defend his people, whom the village chief had committed into his hands. He walks around the ruins, devastated at the sight before him. The once beautiful houses are all broken down with no signs of life. He walks to a familiar spot, and memories of the way life used to be poured in. The spot was once a place full of life, where he had played and had fun with his friends in the village when he was younger. He laments on what had become of his once lively homeland, and now he has lost his comrades to the orcs, and determines in his heart to revenge. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Raja, Queen Towa has been waiting for Hiiro to return for 4 days. Her chiefs advise her to forget about him, as he has proven by his actions that he is ungrateful at the kind gesture of the queen in bringing him back to life. Just as they turn their backs to leave, the queen spots Hiiro riding back on the dragon he rode away with. She quickly calls the attention of the chiefs to it. Geld is number 1 on Hiiro's list of attacks, being an orc remnant. He is Hiiro's target again, because Hiiro thinks he is having plans to again take over Tempest, a neighboring nation, but Geld has the backing of great Rimuru, the slime, who is the leader of the Tempest nation, and Sir Gabiru, who is a survivor of the attack on Ogre village. He was once Hiiro's trainer in battle, and has a host of ogres in training with him. Hiiro launches his planned attack on Geld, as the latter cultivates the land in Tempest one day. A messenger brings word to Sir Gabiru that Geld is under attack, and his trainees rush to help him. Great Rimuru lay in his peaceful environment with his two secretaries, Shion and Shuna. He hopes that Diablo, one of his private servants, would not overdo his mission of restoring peace in the neighboring nation of Falmouth. Shuna advises him to take a break and rest instead of overthinking things. She also brings water for him to relax himself. As they enjoy the serenity of the environment, the same messenger that had given Sir Gabiru the news shows up and announces to them all that Geld is in trouble. At once, great Rimuru rises to help. At Geld's place, Hiiro is in a tough battle with Geld. He is determined to destroy him with every ounce of strength he has left. All his life he had longed to protect and secure his village, but now all was gone, thanks to Gelb and his orc group. In the midst of the battle, Geld tries to strike a conversation with Hiiro as he fights to defend himself, but Hiiro would hear nothing of it. As far as Hiiro is concerned, Geld is an arch enemy he needed to bring down by all means. As they fight, helpers start to arrive to assist Geld in the battle, as he is now getting weak. One of those who help him is called Young Master. He recognizes Hiiro instantly and calls out, "Brother!" Hiiro looks at his face and recognizes him at once. It happens that Hiiro is a big brother to everyone in the village, and he is also a brother to Young Master because of the way he defends them all. Hiiro is surprised to see him alive, since the whole city was destroyed and he thought everyone had died, but Young Master tells him he managed to escape and was given a name, Benimaru. Hiiro is glad to see an old friend from his village and hugs him affectionately. He informs him that his name is also changed to Hiiro. He is, however, curious to know why Benimaru is taking sides with the orcs that destroyed their village. Benimaru tells him it's a long story, but that he has reconciled with Geld, who is a valuable friend of theirs in Tempest. Hiiro hesitates a bit, then decides to accept Geld as an ally since he is now friends with Benimaru. He apologizes to Geld for attacking him, but Geld acknowledges that he destroyed the ogre village, and no amount of apology would be enough to seek forgiveness for it. Although the two servants of Hiiro apologized alongside him, they were both confused at the turn of events and therefore asked Hiiro what was happening. Hiiro explained to them how himself and Benimaru had been childhood friends, as they both grew up together in Ogre Village. As he introduces Benimaru to them, someone calls Hiiro brother from a distance. Hiiro turns and sees two other friends from his village, Shion and Shuna, Great Rimuru's secretaries. Shuna carries the Great Rimuru in her hand as a slime. Hiiro is surprised to see them, as they are also surprised to see that he is alive. They all joyfully reunite. At night they sit together to recount the good days together. They reminisce on the days when Hiiro was their ringleader, and they always referred to him as their big brother. Benimaru remembers how Hiiro had lost one of his horns when trying to save him, and how both of them had engaged in fights in the village, with Hiiro winning most of the fights. Everyone testifies that Hiiro was the strongest man in their village, leading to him choosing to be a mercenary. The memories of being a mercenary didn't seem to go down well with Hiiro, the reason being that he didn't enjoy working with the masters he got. He had left home with 10 other men, hoping that they would make good money from their job, but they had ended up with bad employers. When he told the group he worked in Destave, in the Demon Lord Clayman's domain, everyone is shocked. He further tells them he left his job at the Demon Lord's domain when he heard that Ogre Village was under attack. He closed his eyes and willed the thoughts away, choosing to focus on the joy of meeting his old friends again, comforted that his dead comrades did not die in vain. He, however, revealed to them all that he was renamed by Queen Toa after she saved his life when he almost died in the battle, and as a result, he now served under her. Shuna is especially touched by the Queen's kindness, owing to the fact that renaming a person poses a great risk to their lives. Hiiro explained all he could that Raja is a small kingdom that thrived from mining gold, but unfortunately the land is no longer as blossoming economically as it used to be after they mined out a large gold vein. Because of that, the queen gives her life force to keep her people alive. The last time the queen gave of her life force again, she had become sick and was kept in the care of the royal physician, Chikuan. The physician had informed them that the queen was not in a good condition and she might end up like the queens before her, as the curse will take over her whole body if she continues to use her magic to neutralize the toxins from the mines. The royal family are the only ones with the ability to use the magic in the tiara to neutralize the mine toxins from the lake that surrounds the kingdom, thereby protecting the people from its poison. But there is a catch. The one wearing the tiara, who happens to be the queen, absorbs the poison in the tiara as a consequence. Hiiro learned from Chikwa that the queen wouldn't have lost so much of her life if she hadn't given of her life force to name him, as Chikwa lamented that none of the medicines he has tried on the queen has worked on curing the poison. The elders had thought of the possibility of stopping gold mining to save the queen's life, but they know they won't have enough to import to feed the people. As they deliberated on the way forward, Hiiro had made the suggestion for the kingdom to cultivate the Great Jura Forest. In his opinion, the people would have enough to eat that way, as they would work on the land themselves while himself and other soldiers can hunt for meat. The elders were terrified at this suggestion because the forest is guarded by the storm dragon Valdora, who will not take any chance to have the kingdom violate the forest. As they spoke, they had received a report that the kingdom of Falmouth had invaded the forest of Jura, engaged in a battle with a nation called Tempest, and their soldiers were wiped out. They had also learned that the storm dragon Valdora had also revived after feeding on the dead bodies of the Falmouth warriors, but that the leader of Tempest, Rimuru, quickly negotiated with Valdora to prevent casualties from happening outside Falmouth soldiers, and his negotiation was successful. Understanding that Tempest was the country that fought off the orcs that came against his village, Hiiro had wondered at how strong their army is. With this information, Hiiro had asked the elders again if they could seek permission from Valdora to cultivate the forest of Jura. Even though the elders were insistent that they can't possibly make such requests from Valdora, they eventually concede when Hiiro volunteered to be the messenger who would take the message to Valdora. This is what took him to Tempest, where he started to fight Geld. Everyone's attention was rapt as Hiiro recounts his experiences to Rimuru and the rest. He apologizes to Rimuru for attacking Geld, but Rimuru takes his attack lightly. Rimuru also has some news. He announces to them all that he is now a Demon Lord and has even defeated Demon Lord Clayman, securing the approval of other Demon Lords. To Hiiro's request for permission to cultivate Jura land, Rimuru calls to Valdora, who lay across the room reading a book. He introduces Valdora to them as his friend. Instantly, Hiiro secures the approval of Valdora, but on the condition that the people would not make too much noise on the land. Seeing the gathering as a great opportunity, Hiiro decides to ask Rimuru for help concerning the health of Queen Tawo, since she saved his life. He wanted to reciprocate the same. Rimuru agrees to help, asking if he could visit the queen to wish her well for her recovery, and also use the same visit as an opportunity to see how the kingdom looks like. Hiiro feels honored and quickly obliges. The next day, they all take off to Raja Kingdom. On the way, Rimuru is able to test the water in the lake while rescuing Shion's dragon, which almost fell into the lake. While testing the lake, he noticed something but does not say a word. When they get to Raja, they meet with the elders of the land. Hiiro introduces the men to Rimuru, who introduces Rimuru to them as the leader of the Jura Tempest Federation. The men feel little before Rimuru and appreciate him for coming all the way. One of them, however, highlighted that Rimuru is known as a slime. Rimuru changes into a slime and asks if they find it easier to talk to him in that form. The elders become sorry and apologize profusely, grateful to Rimuru for assuming a human form to ease communication with them. They beg him to return back to his human form. Hiiro gives the news that the great dragon Valdora has granted access to cultivate the Jura forest. He tells them Rimuru introduced him to Valdora. Rimuru, however, warns them not to get greedy while using the land, but the elders have a concern about large-scale cultivation as it would require specialists. Rimuru assures them not to worry, and a Demon Lord trainee appears and lectures them on what to do. After that, the physician Chukran announces that the queen who has been sleeping is now awake. They all go in to see her. Hiiro introduces Rimuru to the queen, who is seated on the bed, weak. Toa apologizes for not being able to greet Rimuru properly and tells Rimuru that she trusts him since Hiiro brought him to her. Rimuru carries out his magical scan on the queen and realizes that the tiara's curse poison cannot be removed except by the one who placed it there, and that the queen would recover, though gradually, if the tiara is removed. The scan also showed that the queen could resist the curse poison depending on her life force, but her recovery seemed to delay. The scan recommended a treatment by honey as a restorative tonic. Rimuru gives the queen honey produced in Tempest to be taken once after every meal. As she takes it, she starts to recover. Rimuru promises her to cure the poison in the lake also, so the queen doesn't have to use her tiara anymore. The next day they go to the lake. Toa recounts how the river was once a pure, clean water, but for over 100 years now, toxins from the mines have polluted the water so much that the air around it becomes very toxic. Rimuru promises to cure the water. He remembers the information he got about the water on the day he first visited Raja. He had gotten the information that the cause of the poison is not a natural cause. He informs them all that the cause of the poison is not the gold mines as they had been made to believe. He walks into the lake, dries it up, and exhumes the poison, then returns the water to the lake, this time as a clean, pure water. That night the whole kingdom rejoices and is happy. As they rejoice, Shion jumps around. Benimaru asks her why she is so super pumped. She replies that she's so proud because everything is now working in Raja, all thanks to great Rimuru, and because she is Rimuru's first secretary, they are of one body and mind. Benimaru asks Rimuru what he thinks of the magic circle he saw while cleaning the lake. He responds that the circle looked very old and guessed that it was probably made by the same person who put the curse on the tiara. Shuna highlights that a legend says that the tiara was a gift from a goddess. Rimuru resolves that they have to look for the one who put the curse on the tiara, that's if they're still alive. As they have this conversation, Hiiro comes to appreciate Rimuru for all he has done for Raja and for the queen. Rimuru asks to be in a relationship with the kingdom, to which Hiiro considers an honor. After this, Rimuru leaves to check up on Toa. In the room, Rimuru asks how Toa is doing, and she replies that she's getting better, courtesy of Rimuru's honey. She thanks him. She confesses to envying Rimuru because she sees that though Rimuru is a nation's leader, as she is, he still spends time with his companions. She feels she is unfair, because when she saw the way Hiiro defended his people, risking his life for them, she reasoned within herself that if she saved him, she would get someone she could trust on her side. Rimuru comforts her, telling her everyone does that sometimes, and that being calculative is not as bad as she's making it to be. With that, the queen lightens up. The next day, Lakua returns to the kingdom from a trip. He is shocked to see very significant changes in the whole kingdom. The land is being cultivated, the queen is well, the lake has been purified. All these cause Lakua to be very devastated. He learns that Hiiro and the slime Rimuru had caused that to happen and laments on his foiled plan of fulfilling his master's wish and thereby elevating his status. He determines to destroy their work by reintroducing tragedy and chaos to the land again. The next day, Hiiro is spending time at the burial grounds of his comrades and Benimaru joins him there, having been informed of Hiiro's whereabouts by Rimuru. They lament over their lost friends when they receive the news that Queen Toa-san is sick again. At the same time, Rimuru is in his slime state, carried by Shuna in her house. He speaks with Diablo to report to her through thought communication, so he doesn't have to always come to him, but Diablo replies that he doesn't find it stressful running to him each time. As they talk, they also receive a report that Queen Toa is sick again. She collapsed after using her tiara to save her people after the lake became so poisoned again that the air around it became very toxic. At the same time of the queen's sudden sickness and the lake's poisoning, the neighboring nation is also preparing to launch an attack against Raja. Rimuru is surprised because he had gotten rid of the magic circle that was making the poison and cannot figure out why the poison would return to the lake. Rimuru desires to go to Raja at once to help the queen, but he is suspicious. The events are too coordinated to be a coincidence, not after he totally cleansed the lake of its poison previously. He wonders if the royal physician Chikwan is really taking care of the queen. To start with, he calls on some of his servants and asks them to find out why the neighboring nation is targeting Raja. He calls some other servants and asks them to get the rest of them together. In Raja, Chiquan tells the elders it would be impossible to relocate the queen as she won't last on the run enough to avoid the battle. Hiiro stands beside the queen's bed in sorrow over the queen's sick state. The next day, Rimuru mobilizes everyone to come together to help in supporting Raja and the queen, as they don't know who's pulling the strings behind the scenes. He, however, asks Valdora to help him look after Tempest as he joins Raja to solve their problems. Everyone obliges with utmost pleasure. Before they leave, Diablo tells Rimuru he might know who is behind the curse on the tiara and the magic circle in the lake. He asked for permission to negotiate having the curse undone. Rimuru grants him permission. That night, Hiiro walks alone, meditating on the way forward on healing the queen. Lacroix is seated on an entrance on the road and beckons on Hiiro, telling him he has a confidential message for him on the possible way to save the queen's life. Hiiro is very interested, so he follows Lacroix into a room where Lacroix tells him there is a secret art that involves transferring one's soul into another, but for that to occur there has to be a level of compatibility in the parties involved. In other words, the queen can switch soul with Hiiro, but Hiiro may lose his soul in the process. Hiiro considers this shortly, then gives his consent, eager to repay the queen for saving his life, even if it would mean he would lose his. Lacroix praises him for his beautiful heart and selflessness as Hiiro orders him to start the process at once. Lacroix opens a box and reveals a shiny object in it. He calls it a curse orb and explains that he had picked it from the far west and that the orb can rebuild a body, thereby making it stronger than it was before. He asks Hiiro to swallow it to ensure the success of the ritual for the transfer of souls. Hiiro collects it and swallows it. He feels strange in his body, but Lacroix assures him that his body is trying to accept the orb. He suggests that they move to a more secretive place where no one can interfere the process. Hiiro follows him, carrying the queen. Meanwhile, Rimuru has gathered everyone together, but they can't find the queen and Hiiro. Ranga, Rimuru's magical dog, starts to sniff around for them, and they all begin their search for the queen and Hiiro. On getting to the secret place, Hiiro places the queen on a golden slab. She soon wakes up and asks what she's doing there. Hiiro explains that he is about to perform a ritual to return the life she gave back to her, so she won't have to suffer again. The queen would not hear of such. She says she cannot allow such and sits up immediately. She tells Hiiro to live for himself, his dead friends, and to live for her. Hiiro is touched by the queen's words and is convinced that he now wants to live. Lacroix asks him to commence the ritual, but by the time Hiiro would reply to Lacroix, he realizes Lacroix had changed. He saw him sitting on an elevated ground, laughing at him and the queen. He mocks them both, saying that no ritual like that exists. He had only deceived Hiiro into believing something like that existed just so he could swallow the orb, which actually contains a secret treasure of power, but that would make the queen even use her magic in her tiara, and once the queen's body is wasted away completely, he would receive his reward from his master. Lacroix marches around in utter pleasure, happy that his plan worked this time. He tells them that the slime spoiled his plan, so he had to replan again. Hiiro is angry and launches an attack at Lacroix, who makes jest of him, provoking him to anger even more. The orb works with rage. Once rage ignites and increases, the orb would lead him to despair. Lacroix speaks to the curse orb to burst. As Hiiro fights and increases in rage, the orb changes him into another man. Lacroix reminds him of his village in ruins, and his rage increases. He keeps telling him things that will increase his rage. The more raged he was, the more the orb consumed him, till he changes totally and starts destroying everything. The queen watches on and is forced to stand up, but she is hit by a stone Hiiro had made to fall. Lacroix motivates the queen to use her power to save Hiiro. The queen decides to save him, but as she tries to use her power, a wall hits her and Lacroix and she falls into the hands of Rimuru, who apologizes for coming late. They had finally found them after searching for long. They build magic walls around the queen to protect her from Hiiro's attacks, and Benimaru engages Hiiro in a fight. Lacroix meets Rimuru and accuses him of always standing in his way. Rimuru asks if he is the one behind all the chaos. Instead, he runs away. Rimuru climbs on Ronga and chases after him, putting Shune in charge of the queen. All the while Rimuru chases Lacroix, Lacroix does not cease to mock him and taunt him, calling him a slime, but Rimuru persists in chasing after him still. As he does, he receives information that the neighboring army are close to the border of Raja. He instructs them to fight if they have to, as they are busy at their end. They shouldn't kill if it's not necessary, but nonetheless, they should put their own lives first. As all this is going on, Diablo continues in his quest for the one who has put the curse on the tiara. He visits a once co-demon, Violet. Obviously, the two of them have some unfinished business, as they seem to antagonize each other even from their greeting. However, Diablo asks if Violet has anything to do with Raja Kingdom, and if she is responsible for placing a magic circle in the lake. At first, Violet says no, but when Diablo insists, she confesses to taking a liking for the kingdom's royal family. Diablo probes further, knowing there is much more that Violet's not talking about. Violet tells Diablo the genesis of her interaction with the kingdom. It started a few centuries ago when the then queen needed help and wanted to save her kingdom. The queen had mistaken Violet for a goddess, but Violet liked it. She had played games with the queen by giving her a tiara, explaining to her that there is a great power in the tiara to save her people, but the tiara is cursed. Once the power is used up, the queen dies and the tiara's power is renewed for the next generation. The queen then agreed, given that she would have the power to save her people. Violet ended by telling the queen to keep entertaining her till the end of her bloodline. After finishing her narration, Diablo scoffs at her, saying so she wants to enjoy watching every generation of the queen's bloodline suffer. From her narration, she seemed to have entered a kind of contract with the royal family, but Diablo is of a different opinion. He accused her of having one of her minions manipulate situations to force the queen to use her tiara. Violet feels insulted by the accusation. When Diablo insists that he's telling the truth, Violet is provoked to anger and challenges Diablo in a fight. Diablo takes on the challenge but doesn't so much as lift a finger, but remains unaffected by Violet's display of her magical powers, frustrating her. As she keeps proving to Diablo that she has better magical powers, her servant appears to her to stop fighting, but she insists. Then another servant demon appears to her and informs her that Diablo is right, that Lacroix has taken matters into his hands by manipulating circumstances to have the queen use her tiara by all means. He explains to Violet how Lacroix has stirred up the neighboring nation against Raja by giving them false information, and also that Lacroix has put something else in the queen's body other than the cursed poison. Violet is upset and feels defeated because all of Lacroix's efforts have foiled the contract she has with the royal family. She reluctantly concedes to Diablo to hand off the royal family. Back in Raja, the battle is fierce between Hiiro and Benimaru. Benimaru tries to help Hiiro back to his sense, but all to no avail. Meanwhile, Rimuru keeps pursuing hard after Lacroix. Because Lacroix is busy facing Rimuru to talk to him and insult him, he didn't notice a deep pit of liquid fire in front of him and falls into it. As Rimuru stands at the edge of the pit, still taking in what had just happened, he sees Lacroix fly out of the pit, laughing Rimuru to scorn. Rimuru flies on Ronga and pursues Lacroix as he flies out of the pit. They meet in the sky, where the physician Chakran flies to join Lacroix, assuring him that he will back him up in his fight against Rimuru. Rimuru's questions and confusions about Chakran seem to clear up that moment. He tells him no wonder he didn't see any sign of recovery on the queen the whole time he treated her. Ronga asks permission to destroy. Rimuru grants him. Ronga immediately runs after him and destroys him. After that, Rimuru faces Lacroix and announces to him that he would face the same end as Chakran, but Lacroix seemed to have an even stronger force backing him up. He tells Rimuru not to ever underestimate him. They both draw out their swords and engage in a fight. As Rimuru defeats Lacroix, holding his throat to his sword, he threatens Rimuru, saying if he kills him, his lady would avenge his death. Rimuru is taken aback, wondering who his lady is. Then, as if in answer to his question, Violet speaks through a light without showing her face. Lacroix is happy she came to his rescue, but is shocked when Violet tells him he has ruined her fun by forcing Queen Toa to use her tiara. Her plan was for the queens to choose to use the tiara of their own accord, and for Lacroix to just observe the queen, nothing more. Lacroix had believed working hard to ensure the queen used her tiara so her life could waste away would bring Violet pleasure and secure him a space beside her, but he is shocked to hear Violet say otherwise. Instead of helping him, Violet tells him to face the consequences of his actions, as she doesn't have any need for incompetent servants. Seeing he is alone and refusing to give in to utter defeat, Lacroix decides to turn into a monster like what Hiiro had turned into and destroy the kingdom completely. He takes the last curse orb in his pocket and swallows it, saying if he would die, he would take everyone with him. He turns into a nuclear flame monster capable of turning the whole kingdom into ashes. Rimuru uses his power to destroy him with his nuclear flame. He cleared them all without a trace. After Lacroix's defeat, he checks on the soldiers fighting off the neighboring nation. He gives the go-ahead to kill the army of the neighboring country because Lacroix had replaced all the army leaders with his own servants. With this information, the soldiers begin to kill all their enemies and finish in no time. Left with Hiiro's case, he quickly runs to the battle site. Meanwhile, the fight is still ongoing between Hiiro and Benimaru. Benimaru, who has tried his best to make Hiiro come back to his senses, now decides to use his haze of black smoke powder that he had held back on using all along because he didn't want Hiiro dead. He has to use it now because he has no option. He hoped Hiiro would not die as he watched the effect of the smoke on Hiiro after it was released. The bridge they were standing on breaks and shatters, and they both fall down to the level where Queen Toa and Shuna were. Hiiro did not die, but instead becomes more violent. As he launches at Benimaru, who was on the floor, Queen Toa runs and stands in between them to protect Benimaru from Hiiro's attack. She looks at him and calls her own name. When Hiiro hears her name, he stops dead in his tracks. Then with a loud roar, he dips his hand into his chest and removes the curse orb, then starts to gradually change back into the original Hiiro. Benimaru runs to him as he falls to the ground. Hiiro, now fully himself, commends Benimaru for fighting so valiantly. Benimaru replies that he is not as strong as Hiiro is, and that he trusted that he would return back to his senses on his own. As they speak, Hiiro's body starts to vanish. This is the price he has to pay for using the curse orb. Rimuru comes in at this point and stretches a potion to him to use, but unfortunately the potion is ineffective and he cannot be healed. He has to die for using the curse orb. Rimuru is sad. As Hiiro disappears, the queen and Shuna weep. The queen, however, would not watch that happen without trying one last time. She conjures the power on her tiara with her last life force. She brings Hiiro back to life. With that, her tiara breaks and she vanishes. Rimuru cannot do anything this time also, as the queen's death is the price to pay for the wish she had made. But on the other side, Tao stands before the goddess Violet, who sends her back to Earth as a way of apology for voiding their contract. Tao returns to life again and everyone is happy. The curse poison completely disappears from the land. The queen is completely healed. The water is pure and clean. The people are happy and they rejoice. The elders appreciate Rimuru for his help in rebuilding their kingdom and ask for a way to repay him. To that, Rimuru asks to buy a vein of iron ore that was found in the cave that had collapsed in Benimaru and Hiiro's battle. The elders find that too small a gift, but Rimuru says it's okay. They are grateful for the kind gestures of Rimuru towards them, but Rimuru tells them he likes Tao for her willingness to risk her life for her people. The people of the land lived peacefully ever after. We sometimes need the help of people to ward off life's evils like this. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel.